The alien marketplace was hot and noisy, filled with strange smells and louder voices. Creatures of every size walked through the dust, trading weapons, metals, and even people. But in a shadowed corner, behind piles of broken crates, one cage. Sat alone inside it was a girl, small and thin. Her arms were chained, her legs bruised, her skin was a soft blue, glowing slightly in the dark. Her eyes, large and golden, watched the crowd like a silent animal. She didn't speak, didn't move, just sat with her knees pulled to her chest. People passed her cage without a second look. Some laughed, others spat near her bars. "She's useless," one merchant muttered. "Tried training her, but she just stares. She doesn't even bite back," another said. "Not even good for entertainment." One man did stop, though, a human, tall with short black hair and a rough jacket. His name was Marcus, and he wasn't here to buy anything. He had just landed to get fuel and supplies, but something pulled his eyes to that cage. He didn't speak at first, just looked. The girl looked back. Her eyes didn't show fear, but something else, something tired, something broken. The merchant selling her noticed and laughed. "Ah, you like her. She's not for sale." Marcus frowned. "Not for sale?" "Well," the merchant grinned. "More like a gift. I'll throw her in if you buy something else. She's been here too long, eats too much, can't speak, not worth the food." Marcus stepped closer. The girl moved slightly, not away, but forward. Only a little, but enough to notice. "Does she have a name?" he asked. The merchant shrugged. "Maybe, but she won't tell us. Just sits there, like a ghost." Marcus didn't answer. He turned and walked away. But the girl's golden eyes stayed in his mind even as he bought fuel, even as he packed supplies. Something about her wouldn't let go. That night, after the lights dimmed and the market quieted, Marcus returned. He walked with soft steps, his jacket pulled tight. The cage was still there, in the shadows. The girl still inside, still watching. He crouched beside the bars. "Hey," he whispered. The girl blinked. Her body trembled, but she didn't back away. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. "Do you want to leave?" No answer, just her golden eyes staring at him. Marcus looked around. No one in sight. He pulled a tool from his belt and reached for the cage lock. It clicked once, then again, then opened with a soft snap. He pushed the door open. "Come on," he said. The girl didn't move at first. Then she slowly crawled forward, inch by inch. Her chains dragged behind her, metal scraping the floor. She reached him and stopped, waiting. He pulled out a small key and unlocked her wrist chains. One fell, then the other. She looked at her hands like they weren't hers. "Can you walk?" Marcus asked. She nodded weakly. "Then let's go." They moved through the back alley, silent, fast. But after only a few steps, red lights lit the sky. Alert. "A market asset has been stolen," a voice boomed. "Reward for return, dead or alive." Marcus grabbed her hand and ran. Guards appeared at the far end shouting. A laser shot hit the wall beside them, stone exploding. The girl screamed softly but kept moving, barefoot and scared. He led her into a broken storage unit, sliding the door shut behind them. They sat in darkness, breath shaking. The girl curled into the corner, arms around her legs. Marcus opened a small ration bar and handed it to her. She stared at it, then at him. Her hands didn't move. "It's food," he said. "Eat." She looked again, then slowly pushed it toward his mouth. Marcus blinked, confused. "You want me to eat first?" She nodded. He took a bite. Then she quickly took the rest and ate, her tiny hands shaking like she hadn't eaten in days. He watched in silence. She finished and licked her fingers, then looked up at him. For the first time, her lips moved. Her voice was broken and quiet. "Why, help me?" Marcus didn't know the answer. Not really, so he just said, "Because no one else did." Suddenly there was noise outside. Heavy boots, scanning lights. A guard shouted, "Check every unit." Marcus looked at her, then at the small space, behind the crates. "Hide there," he whispered. She nodded and crawled back silently, just like a ghost. The door creaked open. Light flooded in. Marcus stood alone in the center. The guard aimed his scanner at him. "You see anyone run by?" Marcus shook his head. "Just rats." The guard cursed and moved on, slamming the door shut again. In the silence, the girl peeked out, her eyes wide, heart pounding. Marcus gave her a tired smile. "Welcome to freedom," he whispered. She didn't know the word, but it felt warm, and it was the first time she believed in something again. The stars above the colony blinked quietly, but the city below was full of noise and flashing lights. Sirens echoed through the narrow streets. Patrol drones hovered low, scanning every alley. Every officer had the same order in their ear: find the stolen pet. Reward 10,000 credits. Marcus ran fast, holding the alien girl in his arms like a small child. Her legs were too weak to keep up, and her feet were bare, bleeding from the rough ground. She didn't speak, didn't cry, just buried her face in his chest, her tiny hands clutching his shirt. He turned corners quickly, slipping through dark paths and forgotten lanes. He knew the colony better than most. He had worked here before years ago, and remembered the hidden tunnels under the lower decks. But he also knew the scanners were smart, and time was running out. In a quiet alley between two metal scrapyards, Marcus stopped to catch his breath. He gently lowered the girl to the ground. She looked up at him, wide-eyed, shaking like a leaf. "You okay?" he asked. She gave a small nod, but her body was trembling. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her. "Stay warm. We'll be safe soon." The girl looked at her bare wrists, free of chains now. Then, slowly, she looked at Marcus and whispered something he almost missed. "Master." Marcus froze. "No," he said gently. "I'm not your master. I'm just Marcus." She blinked, confused. "No, master means safe," she said, voice rough from silence. "Not hurt." His heart sank. How long had she lived thinking master meant not in pain? He knelt beside her, looked into her glowing golden eyes. "You're not a pet," he said. "You're not a thing. You don't belong in a cage. You're free now, understand?" She didn't answer, just looked away. Suddenly, the sound of hoverbikes roared nearby. Guards shouted, lights scanning rooftops. Marcus grabbed the girl's hand. "Come on, we have to move." They ducked into an old transport garage, broken down and forgotten. Inside was a stack of crates and a rusty maintenance hatch on the floor. He pried it open and waved her in. Quickly, she crawled down without question. Marcus followed, closing the hatch above them. The tunnel was narrow but dry and dark, safe for now. After crawling for 10 minutes, they reached a small room once used by smugglers. It had old supplies, a flickering lamp, and a blanket. Marcus let the girl rest on the blanket and handed her another food bar. She took it, but before eating, she broke it in two and gave half to Marcus. He smiled and ate with her. They sat quietly, breathing slowly. Her body was so thin, every bone showing. Her blue skin marked with scars, fresh and old. "I need to know your name," Marcus said gently. She hesitated, then whispered, "Valari." "That's beautiful," he replied. "Valari, you're safe here tonight, but tomorrow we leave the colony." "Where?" she asked. "To a place no one can cage you again," he promised. But outside things were not quiet. Her old owner, a fat alien merchant named Rudax, was furious. He waved a hollow screen of Valari's face in front of bounty hunters. "She's mine," he shouted. "She ran off with some filthy human. Find them both, I'll double the reward." One hunter, sharp-eyed and silent, took the image and nodded. He didn't speak, but he always found his targets. Back in the tunnel, Valari touched the edges of her collarbone, remembering the cold metal ring that used to sit there. "Will they come back for me?" she asked. Marcus nodded slowly. "Yes. They'll try, but I won't let them take you." Valari tilted her head. "Why? I'm nothing." He looked at her, truly looked. "That's not true," he said. "You're someone. You have a name. You can think, feel, dream. You deserve more than chains." She didn't reply, but her hands slowly closed into fists, small and quiet, like she wanted to believe him but wasn't sure yet. That night, while she slept wrapped in the blanket, Marcus stayed awake. He watched the hatch above, listening for footsteps. His gun stayed loaded and ready in his lap. He didn't know much about Valari's past, but he knew one thing. He couldn't go back to the man he was before seeing her in that cage. Something inside him had changed too. As the night stretched on, Marcus looked over at her again. She had rolled over in her sleep, murmuring something in a forgotten alien language, but for the first time, she wasn't curled up like an animal. She looked peaceful. That was the moment he made a silent promise. He would protect her, not because she was a helpless creature, but because she had already survived more than most people ever would. And now, she would never be alone again. The small shuttle shook as it launched from the old landing pad outside the colony. Marcus sat in the pilot seat, one hand steady on the controls, while Valari sat behind him, buckled in, her eyes wide. She had never been off that planet, never seen the stars move so fast outside a window. She didn't ask where they were going, she didn't even ask why he helped her. She just sat still, holding the blanket he had given her, like it was armor. Their destination was a mining moon in the outer rings, a rough place but quiet, full of independent traders and forgotten corners. It was the kind of place where no one asked questions and no one cared about old owners or lost pets. As the ship entered orbit, Marcus looked back at her. "You okay?" Valari nodded, then quickly unbuckled her belt. She walked carefully to him, kneeled beside his chair and bowed her head. "What are your orders, Master?" she asked softly. Marcus blinked, confused. "Orders?" "Yes," she said without looking up. "I belong to you now. I can clean, carry, serve." He stood up from the chair, gently took her arm, and helped her to her feet. "Valari, you don't belong to anyone," she frowned. "But you saved me, you feed me, you gave me blanket." "That doesn't mean I own you," he said. "It means I care." Valari looked down at her hands as if she was holding something invisible. Her voice shook. "I don't know how to be anything else." He guided her to a small seat near the window. "Then we'll learn together," he said. "But from now on, you choose what you want to do." She looked at him like the words were in a language she didn't understand. She had spent so long being told what to be, how to sit, when to eat, what to fear. Now this man was telling her she had choice. Marcus gave her simple clothes, gray pants and a soft shirt. When she came out wearing them, she held her arms tightly across her chest. "You look fine," he smiled. "No chains, no collar, just you." She nodded slowly, but her hands still trembled. The shuttle landed near a trading outpost on the mining moon. Marcus led her through the dusty area, keeping close. No one looked. Twice, everyone there had their own secrets. They found a quiet room to rent, just one bed and one chair. Valari immediately sat on the floor and began scrubbing it with her sleeves. Marcus stopped her. "You don't have to clean anything." "But I must be useful," she whispered. "You already are," he said. "By being alive. By being free." That night, Marcus cooked a simple meal. Valari refused to eat until he took the first bite. Only after that did she eat carefully, like each bite was a test she had to pass. Later, she found a comb in the room's drawer. She brought it to Marcus and knelt beside him, offering it. "For your hair." He chuckled and took it gently. "Thank you, but next time you don't need to kneel, okay?" She nodded, but her body didn't move. It was like the idea of not kneeling felt wrong to her. They slept in silence. Marcus on the bed, Valari curled on a mat by the door. When he woke the next morning, she had already folded the blanket perfectly, cleaned the corner and prepared water for him to wash. "You woke up early?" he asked. "I always do," she replied softly. "If I didn't, they punished me." He sat down beside her. "No one will hurt you again." Valari looked away, her voice barely a breath. "Even if I'm not useful?" "You're more than useful, Valari," he said. "You're important." Later that day, Marcus went to the outpost's small market. leaving Valari in the room with a locked door, not to trap her, but to keep her safe. She sat in the chair and stared out the window, watching the stars in the sky even during daylight, wondering what freedom really meant. But trouble was close. Rudax, her former owner, had followed the shuttle's path using stolen station logs. He arrived at the same outpost, eyes full of rage. He asked around quietly, showed Valari's picture to vendors. One of them nodded, pointing toward the rental unit. Back in the room, Valari heard footsteps approaching, heavy and fast. She stood, up quickly, fear rushing through her body like ice. The door shook as someone tried to open it, pounding with force. "Valari!" A deep voice shouted. "Come out, pet, now!" She froze, her feet unable to move, her hands clenched into fists, but her body shook. Just then, the door opened from the outside. Marcus had returned, standing in the doorway with a serious look. Behind him stood Rudax, flanked by 2 hired thugs. "You stole my property," Rudax growled, pointing at Valari. "She belongs to me." "No," Marcus said, his voice cold and firm. "She belongs to no one." Valari stepped forward, her voice weak but clear. I don't belong to you," she said, her whole body shaking. "I'm not a pet." Rudax laughed. "She speaks now? That's new." Marcus raised his weapon slowly. "She has a voice now, and I suggest you leave before she uses it to call for help." The room went silent. Valari stood taller, for the first time not kneeling, not hiding, and Rudax, for the first time, looked unsure. Valari stood between the 2 men, Marcus beside her, calm but ready, and Rudax in the doorway, his arms crossed with a mocking smile. Behind Rudax, 2 thugs waited, one cracking his knuckles, the other pulling out a stun rod that sparked with blue light. "Move, human," Rudax ordered. "I'm taking her back. She's mine by contract, law, and species classification." Marcus didn't blink. "Not anymore. She's registered as non-sentient property," Rudax said. "You're interfering with trade law." Valari's breathing grew faster, her body frozen, her knees almost gave in. But then Marcus stepped in, front of her, his voice steady. "She thinks, feels, speaks. She's not a thing." Rudax laughed loudly. "She didn't even speak before. I had her for 3 years, never heard a word." "She didn't have a reason to speak to you?" Marcus replied sharply. Valari watched them both. Her hands were clenched, her heart pounding like thunder. Every part of her wanted to crawl back into a corner, to hide. But something inside was burning too. Something small, but growing. Rising like fire in her throat, Rudax stepped forward. "Move, or I'll take her by force." Marcus didn't move. The thug raised his stun rod. Valari's eyes widened as sparks danced from the rod's tip. She remembered the pain, the cold, the days in a cage, the metal collar tightening when she cried. She remembered silence, darkness, and chains, and suddenly, her voice broke through that silence. "Don't touch him," she screamed. The whole room froze. Her voice, though weak, rang out like a blade slicing the air. Even the thug stepped back in surprise. Rudax blinked, completely thrown off. She spoke," he muttered. Valari stepped out from behind. "Marcus." Her legs were shaking, her arms still trembling, but her voice returned. "I'm not your thing," she said, louder now. "I have a name. I am Valari, and I will never go with you again." Marcus looked at her, pride in his eyes. Rudax took a step back. "This is illegal," he snapped. "You're tricking her. You probably gave her something, some human drug." Valari didn't stop. "You never fed me unless I bowed," she said. "You beat me when I moved wrong. You called me pet, slave, dumb animal. But I heard everything. I remember everything." A crowd had begun to gather outside the room. Passers-by and shopkeepers peeked in. Some recorded the moment. Rudax grew uncomfortable. "This is private business," he barked. "She's mine." "No," Marcus said. "She's hers." Rudax raised a hand to strike, but before he could move, Valari stepped forward and slapped him across the face. It wasn't hard, but it was loud, and it stopped him completely. A gasp came from the hallway. Someone recording it said, "She hit him. She hit her owner." And Valari whispered again, "I am not owned." Security arrived seconds later. 2 uniformed officers from the mining outpost. "What's happening here?" one asked. She assaulted me, Rudax cried, pointing at Valari. She belongs to me. Check the records. The officer looked at Marcus, then at Valari, then at the small crowd gathered outside. We'll have to sort this out, he said. Everyone come with us. Marcus raised his hands. We'll come quietly. Rudax smirked, thinking he had won. Good. I'll take her home myself once it's done. Valari didn't say anything more. She walked beside Marcus. Shoulders straight, face calm, but inside her heart was beating hard. She had spoken, she had fought back, and now the world had seen it. At the station, they were separated. Rudax gave his version first, waving legal documents, shouting about stolen goods and illegal smuggling. Marcus calmly told his side, explaining what Valari had suffered, what she had said, and how she had changed. Finally, Valari was called in. The room was quiet. Only one council agent and a station recorder. The agent leaned forward. You are Valari? She nodded. You were registered as a Class 3 pet. Do you know what that means? Yes, she whispered. It means I wasn't seen as a person. Are you a person? She took a breath, deep and strong. I think, I feel, I dream. I was silent because I was afraid, not because I was empty. The agent tapped a few notes. Why should we believe you? Because I'm speaking now, Valari said. And no one gave me a script. I chose these words. The agent stared for a long moment, then closed the file. You'll stay here while the council decides. Back in the holding room, Marcus smiled as Valari returned. How'd it go? He asked. I don't know, she said softly. But I didn't hide. He nodded. You were incredible. She sat beside him on the bench, shoulders finally relaxing. My voice hurts, she whispered. That's okay, Marcus replied. We'll find it again tomorrow. And for the first time in her life, Valari leaned her head on someone's shoulder, not because she was ordered, not because she feared punishment, but because it felt safe, and because she had finally spoken, and the world had listened. The sky on the green planet was nothing like the mining moon or the cage world. Here, soft winds moved through tall grass. The sun felt warm instead of harsh, and the nights were quiet, peaceful, safe. Marcus had brought Valari here after the council placed her under protective independence, a new term that meant she was not property anymore, but not yet fully accepted either. They gave her freedom, but no real home, so Marcus offered his. His small house sat near a forest edge, with solar panels on the roof and a garden out back. Valari stepped inside slowly, as if the floor might vanish beneath her feet. She touched the smooth wall with her fingers, her eyes wide. It's warm, she said softly. That's heating. Marcus smiled. You'll get used to it. She nodded, but still stood near the door. Marcus led her room to room, showing her the kitchen, the bath, her own small room with a soft bed and a shelf for anything she wanted to keep. This is yours, he said. No locks, no cages. You can come and go sleep or wake whenever you want. Valari stared at the bed like it was made of gold. She sat down carefully, then looked up at him. Do I need to earn it? Marcus shook his head. No, just rest live. That night, she didn't sleep in the bed. Marcus found her curled in the corner of the room, wrapped in a blanket on the floor, like she used to do in the cell. He didn't wake her, just placed a pillow nearby and left the door open. In the morning, he made breakfast, eggs, toast, and tea. When Valari came in, she stood by the table until he sat down. Only then did she sit. She still waited for him to take the first bite before eating, but there was less fear in her eyes now. He noticed she looked at everything, the kettle, the cups, even the light switch. You can touch anything, he told her. You don't need permission. She gave a small nod. Old habits. They spent the next few days slowly building new routines. Marcus taught her how to make tea, how to water the garden, how to use the washing unit for her clothes. She never complained, never said no, even when confused or tired, but sometimes she asked small questions. Why do birds fly only during the day? Or why does the sun make shadows move? And Marcus would smile and explain, loving that her curiosity was finally showing. One day, she found a basket of old art supplies, paint, brushes, blank paper. "What is this?" she asked. "Painting," Marcus replied. "You ever tried?" She shook her head. He set up the table and gave her a small brush. "Try whatever you feel." Valari dipped the brush in blue, then made a small shape. Then another, and another. Within an hour, her hands were covered in paint, and a glowing swirl of stars and a single golden eye had appeared on the page. "It's beautiful," Marcus said. She stared at it and whispered, "It's what I used to see when I closed my eyes in the cage." Her voice didn't shake this time. That night, she didn't sleep on the floor. She lay on the bed, still stiff and unsure, but on the bed. By the end of the week, she smiled more, asked more questions. She even laughed once at a joke Marcus made about burnt toast, but peace didn't last long. One evening, a stranger arrived. A tall man in a black uniform stood at Marcus's door, holding a data pad and wearing the badge of the Galactic Council. Marcus opened the door, staying calm. "Can I help you?" "I'm here for an observation," the agent said. "We've had complaints." "About what?" "About harboring a former pet with no behavioral reprogramming." Marcus stepped aside slowly, letting the man in. Valari stood in the kitchen, holding a plate, frozen like prey before a predator. "She's not a danger," Marcus said quickly. "She's learning, adapting." The agent looked at her, then at the walls, the paintings she had made, her name carved carefully into the wooden shelf. "She seems stable," he said, tapping notes into his pad. "But the law is still under debate. Some still say her kind cannot evolve." Valari stepped forward then, holding the painted page with the swirling stars. "I made this," she said, offering it. "No one told me what to draw." The agent stared at it for a moment, then slowly took it. "Thank you, Miss Valari." She blinked, surprised to hear someone call her Miss. After he left, she sat down beside Marcus on the porch steps, watching the sun disappear into the trees. "Will they take me away?" she asked. "No," Marcus said. "Not if I can help it." She leaned her head on his shoulder again like before. "Even if they try, I don't feel like a pet anymore." He nodded. "Because you're not." Valari closed her eyes. The warm breeze brushing against her face, no collar, no bars, no orders, just her name, and a home without chains. A week after the agent left, things changed again. Marcus received a notice on his datapad. It was from the Galactic Council, marked urgent. The message was short but heavy. Subject Valari is to appear before the Sub-Council of Species Classification. In 3 days. Marcus read it twice, then looked at Valari sitting quietly in the garden. She was watering the small blue flowers she had planted, her bare feet in the soft dirt, the sunlight touching her face gently. "They want to see you," he said. Valari looked up, wiping sweat from her brow. "The council?" He nodded. "They want to decide what you are, pet or person." She didn't answer for a moment, then softly said, "I'm afraid." Marcus walked over and sat beside her. "You don't have to go alone." "I want to," she whispered, "but I don't know if they'll listen." "They will," he said. "You've already changed my world. Maybe it's time you change theirs." 3 days later, they stood inside the council hall. It was a grand building with tall glass walls and silver beams. The hearing room had rows of chairs filled with delegates, officials, and curious citizens. Cameras floated in the air, capturing every word, every movement. Valari wore a plain white dress, clean and simple. Her golden eyes calm but alert. She held a small drawing in her hands, the same one she had painted weeks ago, a swirl of stars and her single golden eye in the center. The speaker tapped the table. "This hearing is now in session. We are gathered to review the classification of the individual known as Valari, formerly registered as a Class 3 pet." Someone in the back laughed softly. "She doesn't even look dangerous." Valari heard it but kept her head high. The councilwoman at the center asked, "Do you understand what this hearing means?" Valari nodded. "Yes, you are deciding if I am a person or not." "Correct," the woman said. If we vote no, you return to restricted status, and the man beside you, Marcus, will face charges for harboring unregistered property. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. A sharp-faced alien delegate leaned forward. Do you even understand what being a person means? He asked Valari. I think so, she replied. It means I belong to myself. He chuckled. That's cute, but thinking doesn't make you sentient. My pet can mimic speech. Should we give him voting rights too? The room laughed again, but the councilwoman raised her hand for silence. Valari, you may present your case. Valari stepped forward, slowly. She looked so small in that giant room, but her voice, though quiet, reached every corner. I was taken when I was a child. They put me in a cage. They chained me, beat me, trained me to obey. Her hands tightened around her drawing. They told me I had no name, that I was nothing. I believed them. She lifted her eyes to the council. But then a human came. He didn't buy me, didn't beat me. He gave me food, a bed, and space to choose. He didn't ask for anything. She held up her drawing. This is what I saw when I closed my eyes in the cage. Stars I'd never touched, freedom I'd never known. Some in the crowd leaned forward, watching closely. Valari continued. I didn't speak because I was afraid. But now I speak because I have something to say. A younger delegate whispered to his neighbor. She's not like the others. The sharp-faced delegate stood again. How do we know she didn't just learn these words recently? How do we know she's not repeating what she was told? Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. She painted things I never described. She asked questions no one could teach. She chose to stand here today. That was her choice, not mine. The councilwoman turned to the rest. All members, submit your vote. The room went silent except for the soft sound of fingers tapping on digital panels. The screen above the chamber lit up, names turning green, or red. One by one, Marcus held his breath. Valari stared at the floor, afraid to hope too much. Then the final number clicked into place. Council vote, 14. Yes, 3. No, the councilwoman stood. By majority decision, Valari is to be recognized. As an independent sentient being with full personal rights under galactic law, the room erupted in noise. Some cheered, some protested, but the law had spoken. Marcus turned to Valari with a wide smile. You did it. She looked around, eyes wide with disbelief. They said yes? He nodded. You're free. She covered her mouth with both hands, her eyes filled with tears. Not tears of pain or fear, but something else. Relief, joy, truth. She fell forward into Marcus's arms, and for the first time cried like a person who had finally found their voice. Outside, reporters rushed toward them, flashes of light, questions shouted. How does it feel? What will you do now? Do you forgive your past owners? Valari didn't answer right away. She looked at Marcus, then at the sky above. Then she simply said, I want to go home. Not back to the cage, not back to the moon, but to the place with a garden, with stars on the ceiling, and a name that no one could take from her anymore. The day Valari returned to Marcus's home, the garden was full of new life. Flowers bloomed under the soft golden sun, and birds chirped from the trees, but she didn't rush inside. She stood quietly at the edge of the yard, barefoot in the grass, her toes curling into the warm earth. This time there was no fear in her movements, no collar around her neck, no orders to follow. She was not watching for punishment. She was simply breathing. Marcus walked out onto the porch with 2 cups of tea. He handed her one. It's good to have you home. Valari took the cup and smiled. It's good to be home. They sat under the shade of the old tree. She looked up at the blue sky and whispered, I never thought the sky could feel this wide. Freedom does that, Marcus said. It makes everything bigger. A message arrived on his datapad just then. He checked it quickly and raised an eyebrow. It's from the council, he said. They've passed something new. Valari turned to him, alert. A new law? He nodded, reading aloud. Effective immediately. No species capable of independent thought, expression, and emotional memory may be classified as non-sentient property. He looked at her, eyes shining. They're calling it the Valari Law. Her cup trembled in her hands. That's my name, They used your story as the example, he said. Your voice helped others too. Valari stood up slowly, looking at her hands. For so long I thought my voice didn't matter, she said. But it wasn't broken. It was buried. She walked toward the center of the garden, where her paintings now hung on a small wall Marcus built for her. Each one told a different part of her journey. The cage, the stars, the swirl of freedom, and one with two figures standing beneath a tree, side by side. The neighbors started visiting more often now. Some brought gifts, others brought questions. A small alien child once asked her, "Were you really a pet?" Valari smiled gently and knelt down. "I was treated like one," she said. "But I was always more, I just didn't know it. Some adults weren't as kind." One older trader sneered, "You were lucky to be taken in by a human, don't expect everyone to trust your kind." Marcus stepped forward, ready to defend her, but Valari gently placed a hand on his arm. "It's okay," she said. "Some minds take longer to open. I won't be caged by their fear." Marcus smiled proudly. "You sound more human than most humans I've met." She laughed for real. The sound light and pure. "I think I'm just more me, finally." Later that evening, she found a small box on her bed. Inside was a necklace, not a collar, but a simple silver chain with a star-shaped charm. On the charm was one word, carefully engraved. Choice. Marcus stood in the doorway. "I know jewelry might bring bad memories, but this isn't for control, it's for you." Valari touched it softly, then fastened it around her neck. "This is the first thing I wear, by my own choice," she whispered. "Thank you." That night they sat by the fire outside, the sky above filled with stars. Valari leaned against him comfortably now, not afraid, not uncertain. "Do you ever think about going back?" Marcus asked. "To find your people?" She was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "Sometimes I dream of a face. I think it's my mother's, but I don't know if she's still alive or even remembers me." "If you ever want to search," he said, "I'll go with you." She looked at him with soft eyes. "You already gave me back one life," she said. "If there's more to find, I want to find it with you." Time passed. Valari became a symbol across the stars, not as a victim, but as a survivor, a voice that changed law. Many others came forward after her, former pets from forgotten species who now had rights, homes, and names. One day, while walking through the local market, a council officer stopped her and bowed slightly. "Miss Valari, we are planning a memorial event next month. Would you like to speak?" Valari smiled warmly. "I already spoke once and it was enough," she said. "Let others speak now. It's their turn." Before leaving, the officer asked, "How do you want to be remembered?" Valari looked up at the stars and replied, "Not as a pet," she said. "Not as a law." She turned and looked at Marcus waiting nearby with their bags, just as someone who chose to live. And that was exactly what she did. No chains, no cage, no master, just a name, a voice, and a life. All her own.